So we're going to kick it off to this amazing tribute to somebody we all can be inspired by, Mary Jane Lee, my friend, my neighbor growing up, a wonderful, amazing human being, and this video says it all.
What I remember about my mother mostly is her passion to help people.
She had such a passion for helping people that needed it.
My mother was a force of nature. If she wanted to do something, it didn't matter really what you wanted to do.
It was hard to miss Mary Jane. Mary Jane was very outspoken. She was very sure of herself, and she was very convinced that the world needed to be changed in a lot of ways.
First thing that pops out in my mind was her smile. She just had a contagious smile, contagious laugh. She lightened up a room. I just found her to have a very magnetic personality. She drew people to her.
She was a good soul. Hi there, my name is Diane Kondichook, and I'm Mary Jane's older sister. There was a 1.5 year difference between us both, and we normally got into a lot of trouble together. Mary Jane was a little bit more rambunctious and a little bit more precocious than I was. She wasn't very quiet, even at a young age. She was the boss, and she was very vocal. My father used to tease her all the time just to get her aggravated, and then she'd go slam banging out of the kitchen and run to the bedroom and slam the door. She became friendly with this young woman that lived on Sherman Street, as a matter of fact. I think that's what set her off when she realized that there was no place. This woman was in an abusive situation, had children, and had no place to go. She was going to live on the street. And that riled Mary Jane up like I've never seen her riled up before. And I really believe that that situation caused her to move forward very quickly. And I just felt badly for the people that were going to stand in her way. It was a reasonable perspective for her, for something to be done, because when you started checking into what was available, there was nothing available. Mm-hmm. It was either that or live on the streets or stay in an abusive situation. And then that's what she went with.
I was working at St. John the Baptist Church in Peabody when I originally met Mary Jane Lee. She started Citizens for Adequate Housing in order to provide help for people who had no place to live and didn't know how to go about finding something. Mary Jane got together a rather impressive group, including city councilors, Arthur Gordon, who was a very big presence in real estate in downtown Peabody, and bankers, lawyers, people who knew how to go about doing things. She had the impetus, the compassion, and the will to do things, and could find people that knew exactly how to go about doing those things.
I met Mary Jane back when I was working for Mayor Peter Turigian. I was working in his office at the time, and I was serving on several homeless task forces on the North Shore. And obviously Mary Jane, in her role, was serving on several of those task forces as well. So our paths crossed numerous times, and then she approached me and asked if I would be interested in serving on the board of directors. And that's basically how we first connected, was several years back, but again, under Mayor Turigian's administration. So when we first started, it was just the In-Between. The In-Between was the only facility. It was Citizens for Adequate Housing was the name of the organization. And at that time, it started on Holton Street with the In-Between. And then eventually they added in the In Transition. So yes, I was there at that point. And she was just so determined to make sure that we could provide safe shelter for families, and then within transition, obviously those that had other issues that needed to be dealt with as well. People were being housed on Route 1 in hotels and motels left and right. And Mary Jane was appalled by that. She was just devastated that families, especially children, were living up in those hotels and motels, and they had such limited services. Our mission was to get them the best services that we could, and then to get them on the road to getting themselves on their feet so that they could eventually get into their own apartments, they could get jobs, and move along with their lives. I think Mary Jane was able to connect politically for a number of reasons. Luther Sosmo was the ward counselor at the time where the inns were located. So I think Lou had that direct connection. These were people in his ward. These establishments are in his ward, and he became very much a part of that, as did Bill Toomey. Bill Toomey was not the ward counselor, he was the counselor at large, but for that area, and he was very passionate about it as well. And Mary Jane, again, with that winning personality, was able to draw those people to her and to get them involved. And she had a great rapport with Mayor Turigian as well. She never had any problem walking in the door. He always had an open door policy. He thought that what she was doing was so admirable, and he was very, very instrumental in helping her do whatever he possibly could from a city side to help her move things along.
My mom was the kind of mom who was involved, in your face. What I remember most is she always allowed me to argue with her, which is weird for parents to allow you to argue with you, but she always let me make my point, even if she didn't give me my way. When it came to whatever she got involved with, she always threw herself into everything 100%, gave everything she had, and would argue with anyone to get what she needed for whatever it was, which is, I think, a great lesson that she taught all of us, that I'm hoping I'm passing on to my kids. That it's one thing to stand up for something, but know what you're talking about and be able to defend your position. And I think that's important, and I thought she did too. I was old enough to know the family next door. They had a son who was, I think he was my age, and I was close to 10 years old when that happened. It was like 1980, I think, when that happened. So I was friendly with the boy next door. He kind of moved in on the street, was the new kid in town, and was there, and then he wasn't. And that's what really sparked her the most, is she could not comprehend how that could happen to someone, which is unfortunately the position that most Americans are in nowadays, that they live a couple paychecks and they're in big trouble. So she just could not understand how that could happen to a family, and it was a family of 4, if I remember correctly. I remember being involved in helping paint and clean and get it ready. They got the house, that was an existing house, but it was a disaster area, so we had to do a lot of work to prepare it, and that's what we did. We went over and helped and did all that, working on just preparing it to be a place that people could actually live in. It wasn't much to look at when we started. Our move to Salem was my aunt Diane and my Uncle Jack had owned the house we were renting on Sherman Street in Peabody, and they wanted to sell the property, and so we had to move, and so we moved into down into the Point neighborhood in Salem, and she had friends that were missionaries and were going overseas to Central America to be missionaries, and so we moved into their apartment, which was like a 2-floor apartment, and it was a big change for all of us. I mean, you go from Salem to Peabody, and as far as like what things she got involved with, she kind of threw herself into the community programs there. She got involved with the CDC, and started working on helping out in the neighborhood and doing all the different projects in the neighborhood, and did the cleanup in the neighborhood a lot, just try to make it a better place. I like to go by our old house every now and then and go by the park and see the kids, and there's trees in front of our house, which there never were when we lived there, which I think she would love. But we always had flower boxes in front of the house just so we could have color. We just loaded them with flowers so she could add her dash of color to the neighborhood.
She saw something that was wrong. She immediately tried to help fix any issues that she had. I mean, starting with the Citizens for Adequate Housing, which is now Citizens In, she started that, and then she moved on. She worked for the Peabody Housing Authority for a while, and doing that, she was making sure people had more affordable housing through that job as well. And then she also worked at the CDC, which was the one we had in Salem in our neighborhood at the Point. And she worked there for a long time, making sure people had affordable housing there. And she found out that there was, the drug infestation starting to happen in our neighborhood, in our area. So she started a drop-a-dime program where people could, call anonymous tips in to the police and to people to get either counseling or to help stop the problem. And then when she found out there weren't enough people voting, she went out and became a registrar of voting and started to do vote drives to get people to register to vote. And that was later on in life, like up until probably like I'd have to say 1990 was when she was doing that. Not too soon before she passed away. One of my mom was someone to look up to as a mother. As a parent, she was very loving, caring. She could be strict. There wasn't any getting around not doing your chores or cleaning up after yourself, doing your homework, but she always made sure that she had an open arm for you, to hug you. She always wanted to make sure we got the best of everything, because growing up, we had for a long time it was just my dad was working, and we never knew that we weren't rich, because we weren't by any stretch of the imagination. We grew up very blue collar, and but we never knew it. We never knew that we were living off of one income, because we always had food in the fridge. My mother's very loud. Very loud. They could fill a room with laughter easily. I knew my mom was a natural leader, and people liked to follow her. It's not as easy for me because I was the youngest when she passed away. I was barely 15 years old. I was almost 2 weeks before my 15th birthday. I've been without her longer than I was with her, but I still have I'm trying to do things the way she did. And my kids, my oldest, she fights me on everything, but I think she'll turn out better if I'm just as strict on the rules as my mom was.
When I moved into Peabody, I didn't know a soul. And one day, the doorbell rang. And there was, big as life, Mary Jane, with her son Sean, who was the same age as Corey, on her hip. And she had a little cake for me. And so I invited her in, and she was as loud as me, which I loved right away. It was like we had this awesome connection right away. She had a way with words. She had a way with, talking you into doing things that you really didn't want to do. And another thing too, she just was always such a giver. And, we ran the PTO together at the Welch School, and we got so much accomplished up at the school, and she was a guiding force in that.
She's missed, no question about it. It's amazing what I think about what she probably could have done if she'd still been around. And I think that's our loss. But I think our gain is the fact that her legacy is the Citizens Inn.
I'm sure she would be out protesting. She would be part of every demonstration. She would be crying against the gentrification that made apartment living or adequate housing impossible for people who couldn't afford it.
Well, I think she saw the unfairness of, and what we're seeing today, that discrimination, rampant discrimination. And I think that's what she couldn't deal with. She couldn't deal with people being against certain groups of people. She'd be there with everybody. She would be there with Black Lives Matter. I mean, she would be there with it wouldn't matter who you were. If you were discriminating against somebody, she'd have her face right in your face.
Yeah. If my mom were here now, I don't imagine she would be sitting on her butt. She would be retired, but not so much as my Aunt Diane, I'm sure, is much the same. She's her oldest, my mom's older sister. Yeah, I said it. But she doesn't sit either. She would be very involved with all the things that are going on, even here in Salem and across the state, with the lack of housing, the lack of real housing, for real affordable housing, because there is such a drought of it. And I think she would be heavily invested in that, and she would be knocking on doors and yelling at people to get stuff done, I'm sure.
She would have found something else to help someone. And being, was it 29 years since she passed, she would have already probably created more programs for people to get food, to get shelter, to get clothing. She probably would have gotten people more to vote. She would have gotten more people drug treatment and help. She would have gotten, probably with my aunt, she probably opened a cat shelter. If my mom would definitely be involved right now in the racial inequalities. She would be one of those people protesting.
Yeah.
And she would also be trying to probably, right now, we should probably be making signs and making phone calls, and probably using Twitter or some sort of a modern technology to get the message out that Black Lives Matter, and making sure that people are brought to justice who need to be.
Yeah.
And that's
sure of that.
It most definitely rubbed off onto me.
Yeah.
No question. She'd be in the midst of it all. She'd be down there cracking the whip everywhere, and she would definitely be involved if she was healthy enough, because a passion like that she had doesn't disappear. Once you start something like that, I know, because I have a passion. And she would be, and she probably is looking down on us and saying, wow, I never expected it to blow up to be this huge of a situation. Look at all the people we're feeding. Look at all the people we're housing. I mean, it's just incredible what has happened from a small little group that she started. Oh, I wish she was here.
She is another one of those people that we lost much too soon. She made herself known to so many people and reached out to so many people to help her in trying to make the world better for people who needed a little help. Everybody
was the same to her. Nobody, whether you had a low income, high income, whatever, she never judged anybody. She just was there to help people. I don't know. I miss her. I miss her a lot.
The thing I want people to remember is her stamina. Of when she was right and wanted to get things done, she wanted it to be done. What she wanted to do was make things equal and justice for everybody.
The only thing I can say is that she was just taken from us so early.
Yeah.
And it's just such a shame, because she was just a remarkable person, and let's face it, Citizens In, which was the Citizens for Adequate Housing, never would have happened without her. There's no question about it. And for one woman to have such passion and drive and commitment to not herself, but to others, was just so admirable. I mean, to me, she was a role model.
One of the nights of my mom's wake, it was a long day, and this was the evening session. I'd gone outside for some fresh air, and I looked down. I just looked at my surroundings, and I saw a line going around the block and down the street, including Mayor Harrington of Salem, Mayor Salvo, and Mayor Terigian of Peabody. They were there too. Those are the ones that I could remember.
It was so many people involved. She was just probably the loudest of everybody and the most forceful personality, and that's why she did what she did, and you know, it put a lot of stress on her, and it was hard sometimes for her privately, you know, because it was frustrating, you know, because not everybody wants to help with these issues, and she wore her heart on her sleeve, but I'm so proud of everything that she accomplished, you know, and I go by the park or I see any mention of her, it makes me proud to be her son. Just that I miss her.
Yeah.
Very much. I really wish she could meet her grandkids more than anything.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet her grandkids. But
yeah.
I hope they grow up and be people that she would have been proud of.
You know, that's what it's all about, is connecting to people. And she knew how to connect to people. Mary Jane was a committed, loving person. If you were her friend, you were her friend. If she could get you to do something, she'd get you to do something. And she was very loving and caring, and she loved all those people that she placed in homes and fed and everything. She just had that love. You have to have that love and that compassion to be able to do the things that she did. She started at ground level. I mean, she didn't know what she was doing, but because she had the passion, she completed it.
She was empathetic, she was sympathetic, she was obviously the perfect person for the role that she took on. I just have very warm feelings about her. She always made people feel comfortable around her and important. I mean, the mission that she set upon was important to begin with, and the people she surrounded herself with, she made them feel just as important, that every person had something to offer, no matter how big or how small.
I want them to remember that one person really can make a difference. If one person rolls up their sleeves and helps and convinces one other person, it only takes changing and getting one person help, and then getting that person getting another person help, you know, to make a real difference in the world.
Hello, we're back. Wow, what a great tribute to an amazing woman. And can't be more grateful to the people who spent some time with me to talk about Mary Jane Lee and what she meant to you. And I sent that video out to all of them, and most of them replied that they couldn't stop crying the whole time. So I'm right there with you, and loved Mary Jane and wish she was still here. I think about her all the time. I have a picture of her in my office right as I look at my wall. She's right there. And if I could ask her questions every day, I have one every single day. So Mary Jane, you're in our hearts and our spirits and are an inspiration to us all. So thank you for watching that, and hope you guys enjoyed that. The Mary Jane Lee Society has been incredible for us. Last year was our first year of doing it, and we had 147 members total. We're already at 113 as of, I think it was July 29th. So a lot have been added since then, especially today. Really amazing support of our organization at an incredible level of $1,000 or more. And I just wanted to call out some people in the 2020 Mary Jane Lee Society. At the $50,000 visionary level, MRG Construction Management and North Shore Bank. At the champion level of $25,000 to $50,000, Essex County Community Foundation, and the J.B. Thomas Leahy Foundation is soon to bump up there with their next pledge as soon as we receive that check. As an advocate of $10,000 to $25,000, Jim and Karen Keating and Sarah, Colton Buckley Foundation, Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation, Greater Boston Food Bank, New England Biolabs, NFS Leasing, Philip and Anna Ortons, the J.B. Thomas Leahy Foundation, the Janie Fund Charitable Trust, the Women's Fund of Essex County, and TJX Company.